All right, I'd like to welcome everybody tonight to our February Greater Hartford Sierra Club meeting. We've got a good number of people on our Zoom and here in the room, and I'm glad you came out tonight for this topic. You know, there's a lot happening. You would think with all the great advances in solar technology and storage and a lot of other clean energy technologies that's all we would need to get a lot more of this deployed everywhere. But turns out that it's so very much tied to what reimbursement rates are and in state and federal policy that, this very much dovetails with the Connecticut legislature's legislative session that just started the beginning of February. I was at the Energy and Technology Committee meeting yesterday. Some of you were there as well, and they raised their first group of bills to be heard this session. And, there's a lot of bills relating to energy and renewable energy, and certainly there will be bills relating to solar. They said so. Haven't seen those bills, all of them materialize just yet, but they will get that done by their deadline next week. And then they'll go to public hearing. So I think it's a timely topic for all of us to understand what's happened with loss of federal incentives and what consumers, what homeowners can do, around adopting solar themselves or towns and businesses, for example. So we're really fortunate tonight to have with us two gentlemen who know a lot more about this than I do, and I think can really help you all understand, both here and on Zoom, what are the different factors to consider when deciding about solar and what people can do. And it might not be for you in your home, but you may know a family member, a neighbor, somebody that you work with who is thinking about it, and you can let them know what you heard, and we see if we get more people to adopt it and get more clean energy on the grid. So I'm going to read the bio for Sean Riel. Sean entered the solar industry in 2017, helping lead community out. Yep. Okay. Sean Riel is here from Earthlight Technologies, and Sean entered the solar industry in 2017, helping to lead community outreach for the Solarize Ellington program and sparking a long-term commitment to expanding access to clean energy. There were a lot of towns that did those Solarize programs back then, including my town of South Windsor. That's what got me putting my first solar panels on my house too. Sean briefly managed solar sales teams in Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Oregon before shifting to policy engagement, where he has collaborated with state policymakers and utility commissions to shape energy policies that promote equitable access to solar for both homeowners and businesses. Prior to joining Earthlight, Sean taught Latin, ancient Greek, and classical archaeology at UMass Amherst. So I'm sure he's got some really good references that we can all appreciate tonight from that background, which we'd love to hear. I'll introduce Bernie Pelletier when he comes up after Sean. Bernie will be talking about plug-in solar, which is a hot new topic, and will have a bill raised and heard up at the legislature this session. But Sean, come on up and watch the cord here. But thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Steve. Hello, everyone. And I personally am really looking forward to Bernie's talk as well. Oh, yes.
Closer. It picks it up better when it's really right there.
Excellent. All right. Yeah, I used to teach Latin and archaeology, and if I had $1 for anytime someone said that they went from archaeology to solar, I'm waiting on that first dollar.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so for today, I wanted to speak broadly about some of the changes we saw going into 2026, changes in federal policy and how it's affecting folks who are going solar today, and then take a look at some of the state programs and state policies that have changed going into this year. if there's time, there I can give you a sneak peek of what the successor programs might look like in 2028. Um, yeah, let me do that here. Oh, alrighty. So just see, these are some of the core values that Earthlight has. I'll skip past that though. So I wanted to start off on the federal side looking at the solar tax credit. There was a lot of noise about, the solar tax credit ending, primarily for people who want to directly own their systems. And there was a lot of noise tantamount to the sky is falling, solar isn't going to be worth it anymore. Um, in some areas where you have low utility rates, the value proposition certainly took a hit. But here in Connecticut, where our rates are, 29 cents in Eversource today, 33 cents per kilowatt hour for United Illuminating, solar still has plenty of savings to bear for anyone who's going solar, regardless of how they choose to finance it. But one of the things that has changed going into 2026 is that if you choose to directly purchase a solar array or battery storage system, or take out a loan to own those assets, you no longer qualify for a 30% federal tax credit. Um, but in reality, there are still great opportunities, great programs by which you can go solar, you can save money. Where we operate in Oregon, for example, the utility rate maxes out at 18 cents. So we're at 29 cents. Oregon is at 18 cents. Plenty of people still see the value in going solar and getting energy storage and giving themselves peace of mind. By the way, if you have any questions at any point, I really like to go down rabbit holes, so feel free to ask away. Oh, yes. Very cool. So looking at how we've adapted or how solar has adapted. For one, people can still indirectly benefit from the federal tax credit because that tax credit still exists for commercial entities. So we do a lot of commercial work here at Earthlight, and for folks who are looking to go solar for their business, for even some nonprofits, there is still a pathway to claim the federal tax credit. And for that reason, um, lease financiers or power purchase agreement financiers are also still able to take a federal tax credit. So when you sign up for a subscription or a power purchase agreement or a lease, whatever term you want to use with them, you're now getting a 25-year a 25-year program by which you're going to be paying less for every kilowatt hour that your system produces. Going to be paying less than you would have paid to the utility. And now those components, your solar, your battery storage, any any software and hardware that goes with it is also going to be warranted for 25 years. So those programs have been in existence for some years now, but today, probably 67 to 68% of homeowners going solar in the state of Connecticut are doing a lease or a power purchase agreement. Now, there's a new finance program coming out there called a prepaid power purchase agreement. The idea there is that you pay an upfront cost right from the beginning, but it's going to be less than what you would have paid if you were going for direct ownership. And after about 5 years, the solar array and the battery storage system would revert ownership to you. Yes.
These rates are what percentage of leasing might add to ones pursuing solar.
Yeah. So how much you might save in doing a lease over sticking with your traditional utility? Am I understanding the?
If I'm wrong, you said something, 15 years, 20 years, so I'm thinking, so it's like a mortgage that you would have.
Um, it has the length similar to a mortgage, but the idea there is that, if you're going to be paying the utility, you know, today you're going to be paying the same utility 25 years from now. So this is a way that you can potentially save on the cost that you're paying for every kilowatt hour and that you're locking in that savings. Um, we at Earthlight historically have done fewer leases and power purchase agreements just because it can limit changes that you want to make to that system in the long term. Say people who go solar who several years from then might decide, you know what, I want that battery for my house. I just had a really bad outage or a long outage from one of these winter storms. Um, Direct ownership may be a better option to do that. Did that answer your question?
I understand.
Any other questions? Yes.
What's so, well, maybe else. How long does the system last? But a couple of years ago, it was only 10 years, expected to last 10 years. Have they improved how long it will last?
Yeah, these days you'll see the system, really two major components of the system. The panels themselves, most panels are going to have a useful life of about 30 years. The inverters that take the power that your system produces and converts it from direct current to alternating current, what you would need to use in your home, those typically range nowadays from 15 years to 25 years before you would need to replace them. Um, but even if you're using an inverter that would only last for 15 years, those are designed so that you can swap them with other similarly sized inverters. Any other questions? All right. So yeah, one of the changes at the federal level, especially if you're doing a lease or power purchase agreement, is that there are now some strict requirements on what equipment you can install. Um, so if there's a particular battery that you're, really fond of, and there are some great prepper batteries out there that would not be able to be used in one of these leases or power purchase agreements, but if you went for direct ownership, which I will maintain, even without a federal tax credit, direct ownership will still give you the best long-term savings. Um, if you go with direct ownership, so long as the equipment is, UL listed, you can install it no problem. Yes.
But about period buy now without tax credit typically.
Yeah, I will say in part because of the federal policy and the state policy I'll talk about in a second, you're probably looking at, a 12-year payback now. Uh,
That much longer than it was for the tax credit day.
yeah, you're looking before it was about 9 years on a pretty good site, a pretty, a home with a pretty good southern exposure. These days you're looking at 12 years to 13 years. Yes.
Tell me exactly what the difference between a power purchase agreement and a lease is?
Yeah, the terms have started to get conflated over the years. Broadly speaking, with a lease, you are taking a monthly payment that, for a monthly payment for whatever your system, whatever your solar array would produce in the course of a year. With a lease, if you have what's called a payment escalator, which can range anywhere from 0% being a fixed escalator to a 2.99% escalator. With a lease, every year your monthly payment would escalate by the lease escalator. With a power purchase agreement, the payment could escalate, but now it is off of the agreed upon kilowatt hour rate that you signed up for with the financier. So take, for example, if you signed up for a power purchase agreement that starts you off at a rate of 20 cents compared to Eversource at 29 cents, you're saving 9 cents from day one. But if you have an escalator on that power purchase agreement, you might see that 20 cents turn to, let me do some quick math here. 20 cents times 1.0299, you would see that rate increase to 20.6 cents in the next year. Now, not all leases have an escalator, nor do all power purchase agreements have an escalator. But if they do, the lease escalates off of the monthly payment. The power purchase agreement escalates off of the rate for power. It's a slight difference, very slight difference. Did that answer your question? Excellent. Yeah, so speaking on state policies and looking at solar first, one of the things that came about not this year, but actually last year, was this idea of a non-bypassable charge. So for people going solar last year, as part of the program rules, they are now paying a charge for every kilowatt hour that their system produces. And if I can pull up the mouse here for a second, see if I can do this. That is recorded right from here. So every kilowatt hour that shows from my production meter, I'm going to get charged for. Whether or not I use it immediately at my house through my lights, camera, action, refrigerator, those loads, Eversource and United Illuminating are going to charge me for what this meter reads, not what I send back to the utility. And now let's see if I can change this again. Well, that's not what I wanted to do. All right. So looking at this more, if you think, oh, well, I could just lower that charge by installing battery storage. No, the program is set up in a way that even if you're maximizing self-consumption, producing power and using it at your house, you're still going to be charged by whatever that production meter read. So for example, and I'm sorry, this does go into another little segment of math. Let's say my utility rate is 29 cents. So I have Eversource and my solar array right from that production meter produces 800 kilowatt hours in a billing cycle. I'm going to be charged off of that 800 kilowatt hours. Let's say only 500 kilowatt hours ends up going back to the grid, which means that some amount of energy, 300 kilowatt hours, are used immediately in the house with lights, TV, fridge, whatever my kids are doing with their lightsabers. So I send back 500 kilowatt hours and I pull in 300 at night, on cloudy days, on snowy days, at times when my solar array just isn't producing the energy I need. So at first I would be credited for the difference between 500 kilowatt hours I sent back to the grid and the 300 I pulled in. For 200 kilowatt hours, which if I multiply that by my starting utility rate, gets me about $58. Under this new program, I am now charged based off of what my production meter read, 800 kilowatt hours. I'm now charged a little bit over 4 cents for that power. So I am not carrying a credit forward of $58. I'm carrying $32.16. Slightly lower. Not, it's not low enough that the sky is falling in solar, but it does affect the value proposition. Yes. I'm sorry, could I get your name?
I had a question from somebody on Zoom, and they want to know, where does the NDP charge money go to?
Oh, the non-bypassable charge. That is supposed to show up in the public benefits as a form of revenue. It should show up in the non-bypassable federally mandated congestion charge as part of non-contract qualifying facilities. Now, because this particular non-bypassable charge just came out, the elevated 4 cents, we just haven't seen any utility filings to show this recorded as revenue for them. But we should.
What's the rationale for that charge? On the base of it seems unfair. Maybe I'm not understanding.
It's built into program statute. When the Public Utilities Regulatory Authority changes rules every year for the residential program, what they're really trying to capture is this sense of a rate of return, an equitable rate of return for people who are going solar. Over the last 4 or 5 years, the argument has been that for people going solar, that there should be an internal rate of return of about 9 to 11%. As solar equipment has, started to decrease in cost, and utility rates have in fact increased, we've seen that rate of return go beyond 11%, forcing or prompting PURA to say, oh, you know what? Solar's now too rich. We need to put in this type of charge or a non-bypassable charge to bring homeowner systems back to an equitable rate of return.
We've just lost 30% federal tax credit for solar, so that rationale would seem to have disappeared.
My comments on the most recent filing would agree with you. PURA used to look at systems that were deployed and look at how many systems were deployed under direct ownership and how many were deployed under a leasing model or power purchase agreement model. Because those systems too deployed as third-party owned assets, the financier could claim depreciation on those systems in a way that if you directly own the system, you couldn't. This past year, PURA took the unprecedented step of ignoring the direct homeowner-owned economic argument for solar and just looked at setting rates based off of what a third-party owned or power purchase agreement system would get for a rate of return. So I absolutely agree with you. It is unfortunate that they set the rate that they did. In part, I would say that they were prompted to by the most recent public act that was voted in. I think it was Public Act 23-174, Senate Bill 4, in which at the state level now, it's written into program statute that there has to be a non-bypassable charge of no less than 3.25 cents. Pura just took the unprecedented step by increasing it.
Just to follow up on that.
Yes.
You know, as I recall some of the debate on that, you know, there's system benefits to the grid, and therefore to the utility that saves them money when they don't have to upgrade equipment. Or, you know, when there's not as much demand, because the homeowner has solar, and then there's more resiliency, et cetera, et cetera. You know, did any of that factor into the thinking of setting that possible charge rate? Or was that missed entirely and so the value of solar is not entirely fairly set? Yeah.
I think their answer to that was what value of solar? We haven't completed a study beyond a draft study. That's one of the things that the industry is really bringing to the forefront, and I've seen that in the comments that the Sierra Group has published, that SIA, ConSSA, and a lot of other industry groups have stepped forward to say we've been seeing, you know, these programs, the residential program, the commercial program, listed as expenses, but we have not done the due diligence in looking at what the societal benefits have been. We haven't looked at the fact that for any system that goes in residentially, where there is a good chance that there is going to be a needed transformer upgrade on the street, it's the residential solar program that pays for that, not ratepayers. Those costs are borne by folks who are putting in interconnection applications. Those funds are pooling together to really pay for any transformer upgrades that need to be done at the street level. The problem is that the legislature has myopically looked just at the public benefits as this charge that they need to eliminate, without looking at the benefits that these programs have really brought to ratepayers. Oh, no problem. Let's see. What else do I have here? Oh, excellent. No, I did do the math on this side. So I was wrong. You're actually carrying a $25.84 on-bill credit instead of a $58 credit. Now, if I look at solar and step into the Wayback Machine and really only look at 2024, 2025, and 2026, 2025 was when Pura first brought in this non-bypassable charge, but they kept it fairly low, you know, at half a penny. And you can actually thank Eversource for putting in a really good argument for keeping that non-bypassable charge low. It made a lot of sense. And yeah. But then looking at 2026, that rate has, of course, increased by over 700%, which is by no means advantageous to folks who are looking at going solar. If you look before 2024, you actually used to get a payout on the system. You weren't charged for this. You were, in fact, incentivized further for going solar. So any questions on this, on the solar side before moving over to battery storage? And I apologize if I'm over on time already.
Now let's try to move along on storage, two-part questions, and we give Bernie a chance to go, and then at the end, we'll try to answer any questions that we want to go deep on solar storage.
Absolutely. And apologies, Bernie. Really looking forward to your presentation.
All the time.
On the energy storage program side, there's actually a new program coming to the forefront on April 1st. No fooling, but boom. And that comes with an upfront incentive for people who are looking at getting battery storage, as well as a performance-based incentive that's paid out to system owners or people who are really benefiting from the battery storage asset. paid out over 10 years at a pretty lucrative incentive rate. If you've ever looked at battery storage in the past, and didn't think that the numbers worked out for you, under this newer program beginning in April, the numbers may look a little bit better for you. But the basic idea here is that in the summer months and winter months, when the utilities are facing high peak demand, and we've had a couple events already in the winter where the utilities have had to call upon energy sources that are, not the cleanest energy sources out there, just to be able to meet the demand that homes and businesses needed at that time. Battery storage is meant to address those peak demand periods and maintain resiliency at the overall grid level. So starting off with the upfront incentive, pretty simple formula. If you're a standard homeowner, and I'll go into why some people are not standard in just a second, it comes out to about $30 times whatever the rating of your battery is. If you're installing a Tesla Powerwall, for example, that battery has a usable energy rating of 13.5 kilowatt hours, which would give you an incentive of, throwing me on the spot here, 13.5 times $30 comes out to $405. If you install another battery, one known as Franklin Whole Home, as you can see pictured there, that one has a higher output at 15 kilowatt hours. So you'd get an incentive for about $450 per battery. Now, if you live on the utility grid edge, which really means you have a higher frequency of outages than other people in your town, or a longer duration, multi-day outages, you might live on what the utilities refer to as the grid edge, areas that are going to be back up and running later than anyone else. For those customers, the incentive actually goes from $30 to $130. So considerably more lucrative. And it helps to defray your upfront investment in battery storage. Each utility has a map that you can access, and I can share this presentation with everyone afterwards. But you can look up your address, see if it borders a red line or a blue line. If so, you live on the utility grid edge. So you have both my condolences for having more outages, but also my congratulations for being able to get a higher incentive. On the performance incentive, this goes back to when the utilities draw on your battery to dispatch residential batteries, commercial batteries for a 2 to a 3 hour time period. By allowing the utilities to do that, they will compensate you based off of your average contribution during the summer season and during the winter season. The batteries can be called on between 30 to 60 times in the summer. 60 is the maximum. Historically, we've seen 42 to 46 events. In the winter, the battery can be called on 1 to 10 times. And historically, we've only seen them called on 2 to 3 times a year. So we're already at that average today. Most events are 2 hours rather than 3 hours. So as soon as the event ends, you can use your battery again, and you actually get compensated more based off of the batteries being called upon for fewer event hours. More 2 hour events than 3 hour events. The incentive is paid out based off of how much energy is discharged by your battery over the whole season. Divide that by the total number of event hours. So with these Franklin batteries, these Tesla batteries, most of the batteries out there these days can fully discharge in 2 hours if you let it. So if you have more 2 hour events than 3 hour events, you're able to discharge the same amount of energy. It just takes less time. At the same time, if you are looking at your battery settings or looking at a storm that may be coming, you can opt out of events. It just lowers your participation score. And the incentive rate that you're paid out on is based off of qualifying in any one of these three buckets. The standard customer rate is $300 times your average KW dispatched over 10 years. If you live in an underserved town, underserved municipality like those listed up here, instead of that incentive being $300, comes out to $450, considerably higher. And if you look at the low income incentive, this one, it's really meant to benefit those who are qualifying from income-based eligibility through belonging to some kind of hardship program like SNAP, Social Security, temporary assistance for needy families. If you have the low income discount rate on your electric bill, you would qualify for this incentive as well. If you've had a HES, a home energy solutions assessment, or HES income eligible, you would qualify for the low income incentive rate as well. But yeah, through that program, you can really go from a performance-based incentive that could get you, if you live in an underserved municipality with, a couple batteries, you could very, very easily net an incentive of $25,000 to $30,000 over 10 years. If you live if you qualify for the low income incentive, it's even significantly higher than that. But now it's turned battery storage into something that can actually give you a positive rate of return, not just resiliency. With that said, if you want to steal my identity later on, I include my contact information here. But I have thoroughly enjoyed talking with everyone today.
One final question before we turn it over to Bernie is just, I know the state had a goal for how many gigawatts of battery storage they wanted to get installed. Do you have any idea how we're doing on battery storage installed?
We will say that we are falling short of the targeted goals, and thank you for that question. When the Energy Storage Solutions Program came about, and it's administered by the Connecticut Green Bank, the goal initially was that 10 megawatts AC of storage would be deployed residentially in the first year. We have just hit that number for not systems deployed, but systems with incentive applications in maybe 5 months ago. So we are definitely falling short of the mark. But some of the changes that have been made, particularly for the program starting on April 1st, is meant to drive more people into participating in the program. Homeowners, financiers, people who were generally wary about what the program had looked like before.
Great, thank you, Sean. So if you don't mind standing by for questions after Bernie.
Absolutely.
Maybe you can help me get Bernie set up on here if you know how.
Absolutely.
And while you're getting the slides loaded, I think I'll do my introduction of Bernie Pelletier. So give me 1 second for that. All right, so Bernie Pelletier, okay.
Spoken to the mic. Spoken to that mic.
Okay, yeah. So Bernie Pelletier is he's the vice president for People's Action for Clean Energy. He also volunteers at the state level, recently joining Connecticut's Energy Efficiency Board as the residential representative. Prior to that, he co-chaired the Building Working Group of the Governor's Council on Climate Change. His focus is on building energy efficiency and renewable energy adoption. And additionally, he is a member of the Connecticut Energy Network Steering Committee. So Bernie does it all and does it well, and we're glad that he is here. And we've got the slides loaded, which is fantastic. So Bernie, come on up. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Good evening, everybody. You can hear? I'm very eager to talk about plug-in or balcony solar, but to be honest, I did come here just to hear Sean because just two emphasis points on what he talked about. It is so important. And one message that I take away from Sean is no, after the multiple attacks on residential solar, it is not dead. And two, if you look at the town we're in, West Hartford, when we had our first solarized program, we were very proud of ourselves. We got 73 solar systems put up. That brought the total for the town to be about 100. We're now at about 1,700, which is about 8% of homes, not dwelling units, but homes. And I just looked at West Hartford's electric consumption from 2019 to 2024. It's about flat, despite all of the building and all the people moving in here. It makes a big difference. And just one last point, I have two batteries, two Franklin batteries that Sean's company put in. And it is it's kind of wonderful to look out there and know that we have a day's electricity supply and we can help our neighbors. And during our dispatch event, I figured that everybody on my little block was powered off of my battery. So something like that for a little under an hour, something like that. So important stuff. So I'm going to talk about something maybe for here in the room. How many of you have heard of balcony solar or plug-in solar? Great. So most of you have heard about it. It came to our attention. We had an event where we had a sort of televised Bill McKibben address, and he started talking about plug-in solar. He said, out in Utah, they've got this thing called plug-in solar, which is big over in Germany. And people come up to me after our event and said, are we going to do that? And I said, I guess we better do that. So we're going to talk a little bit about democratic solar. So let's see here. There's a right arrow down. Let me try a down arrow. Let me try a left arrow. Sean to the rest. Oh, those arrows. Okay, I was doing those. Okay, very good. Okay, so you already know, so this can be relatively quick. What is this plug-in solar? I like to call it big solar. That's Sean's little brother. It's essentially underwriting laboratory listed photovoltaic appliance. So it's more like a toaster than a solar system. It's an appliance. And that distinction is more than linguistic. It determines how it's rated and how it's used. It plugs into an external outlet. Now there's a little bit, in America, we obviously can argue about almost everything. We're having a bit of a fit about plugs. In Germany, it would just plug into the wall. The underwriter laboratories are going to say we need a special plug and we may need some wiring, at least early days right now. Most of the power is going to be used on site. If you do export any power, you are not going to get any money for it. So that when Sean was talking about the export rates and the non-bypassable charge, none of that matters. You're essentially making a little tiny kilowatt hour donation to your neighbors if you end up exporting. Basically, the beauty of it, though, is maybe 25% of homes are suitable because of roof and trees and situation. Almost everybody has a little sunny spot somewhere on their yard, on their garden shed, on their, you get the idea. It's much more democratic. It can be everywhere. And it's affordable. You can buy them off of Amazon. There's no incentive. There's no pure. There's no deep. There's no this or that. Yes, lack of regulation is a great thing. So just to warn you, I'm inherently, if I was a Winnie the Pooh character, I would be Eeyore. So even though I'm going to start off inspirational, at the end, I'm going to throw a little cold water on you. So just get snuggled up now. But the inspiration, is that this plug-in solar panels are used around the world. And the largest market is Germany. Anybody speak German? There is a way to say this in German, which I can't say. But 1 in 10 households in Germany have some variation of this. It's a big deal. Its growth started in 2019 when the government over there streamlined utility connection, which we have to do here, by the way, for big solar and little solar to allow people to use this. So once they got it set, it took off. You can see some nice little pictures there from Germany. So just a schematic and not as snazzy as what Sean was showing you, but no surprise, there's some solar panels. And back of those solar panels is a little microinverter. And what a microinverter does is it takes what comes out of the battery, which is flat direct current, and turns it into this, which are houses, i.e. alternating current. So that's its job. That's job one. Job two is if the grid goes down, it will stop exporting. So you don't want to, especially with Sean's systems, you don't want to export because you'll kill somebody. With these, you would just give them a tingle. It might even be enjoyable, I think. But nonetheless, you don't want to export. It goes to your house, and most of it is going to be consumed there. As we said before, if you do export a little bit, you don't get anything for it. It's a donation. So why bother if it's so small? The answer is there's all these fables. You might even have some Greek and Roman stories to tell, but little tiny things, they add up. And so if we were to get 100,000 or 200,000 people in Connecticut to install a 1 kilowatt system, that gets to be really big. And I'll leave it to the man with the calculator to do the thing. But here, because of our high rates, we could actually benefit a homeowner if they had like a 1,200 watt system or 1.2 kilowatt system, maybe $400 because at the high rates of electricity that we have here. So that's kind of what it is. There's a lot more, few rabbit holes we can go down if you want, but why I'm happy to be here and where we are at this very moment is that we're on the cusp of this short legislative session, which began February 4th. And for us to really embrace this little technology, we need enabling legislation. And that really wants to do at a high level, 3 things. Thing one, the utilities, and we're going to talk to them, I think on Friday, the 13th, but I'm not superstitious much. But basically they're saying, look, you're going to do this thing. It's not us. Just tell us that it's not us. If anything goes wrong, if the house burns down or this or that, they just want to be held harmless, and we're happy to hold them harmless. The quid pro quo, I know Latin too, is the residents are going to get an exemption from the interconnection agreement that goes with these bigger systems. So that's sort of the back and forth there. And where we are having our little battles about plugs is product standards. And those product standards are governed by Underwriters Laboratory. And there's really 3 things that we want there coming out of that. Backfeed protection, which is easy, that's just the way all solar and all inverters operate these days. Safety standards. So we want to make sure that nobody gets hurt with these things. Most of us in this room are human beings, and you know how bad we human beings are. So it's a matter of time till somebody's going to say, if 1 is good, 3 is better. And they're going to plug 3 in, and something bad is going to happen. So we have to figure those rules of the road out. So call that broadly safety standards. And then size limitations. I've heard 1.2 kilowatts up to 1.6 kilowatts is the max. And there's actually, this is plug-in solar, there's like micro, which is below 481 watts. Don't ask me why, but there's even smaller variation of this. So what's next? Steve, and he knows a lot more about the ENT and the workings of the legislative bodies than I do, but they've taken it up as a 2026 initiative. We asked for a standalone bill because we think this should be an easy thing. It should be something that appeals to Republicans and Democrats. It's got resilience. It's got Yankee independence associated with it. And we figure, let's not hook ourselves up to anything that's complicated. Let's just get this thing as a standalone bill. We don't know how it's going to be introduced. It should be bipartisan, but I have no doubt that all the Sierra Club people, we're going to be asking you to flex your advocate vocal cords and muscles, because nothing is easy these days. And as promised, here comes the cold water. So yes, in Germany, 1 in 10 people have adopted this. There's a lot of rabbit holes to go down. We'll send out these slides. I really do encourage you to click on that hyperlink. I think it's a group called Bright Saver that's really championing this around the country. The key requirement, and you can read more about it, there is this special plug rule, Underwriter Laboratory 3700. You need this special plug, and it will have to be initially installed by a professional, or by a profession, as I've written it here on this slide. And it can be installed either in a dedicated circuit or with additional safety on a shared circuit. I mean, the legitimate concern here is you don't want to plug this in and have it get conflated with other devices and overwhelm a circuit, which it can do, because you're putting a minus into a plus. But that, unfortunately, that extra safety comes with a couple $100, $200 to $400 cost, depending on what your wiring is and whether your brother-in-law is an electrician, or whether you're friends with Sean at Earthlight and they have a fleet of electricians. But so we're hoping, and I'm going to go to the prognosis. So was that, you take that as cold water? That's I don't want to trick anybody.
Too cold.
Oh, okay, lukewarm water. And so just this is my prognosis. I think, and I'm not the only one saying this standard is very conservative, but also very new. This being the land of steady habits. For you legislative buffs, I also call it the land of study habits, because we study everything and then don't do anything. But I'm counting it as a victory if we can get even this strict version through with the special plug, create for ourselves here a real world safety record, and then promote more common sense standards that make plug-in solar more available. Right now, it's going to be hard if you don't own your home to get your landlord to say, here, you can put in this plug. But I want to just get this thing started. That's my bottom line. Yes.
Do you think there's any chance that you could get a converter instead of having to change the whole circuit, your electrical system?
I think they're going to be pretty strict about having a professional install a specific thing, at least at the beginning. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. I'll say, just as, let me even go beyond what Sean said. Solar panels originally went up in space on satellites in the 1960s, and they're still working up there. I think you mentioned 30 years as a solar panel. The solar panels themselves, they age a little bit. They don't function quite as much as they used to, but they don't really break most of their time. The electronics, like the microinverters, and you'll have to switch those out. It's like you said, Sean, maybe every 15 years, but it lasts a long time. It's not something like a piece of electric. It's not like your Xbox, which is only going to last a few years.
It doesn't work if the electricity is out.
That is correct. It doesn't work if the electricity is out. By the way, I'm looking at my picture here, and you're gonna see that essentially from here down of my face. So that's a real treat for anybody watching this recording. No, it doesn't work when the electricity goes out, and neither does a solar system unless you have battery storage.
Is that bad?
You can get battery storage. You can go to Amazon and buy a battery. I have a little battery for my computer, just because.
Outage, battery storage, you could use that as a backup for yourself.
Yes, yeah. And so these systems, you could use a backup for your modem, you could charge your phone, you might be able to run your refrigerator. The systems that Sean was talking about, you can run, if you're careful, your whole house, and you can run it for a long time. So, yeah.
So, bringing the view from one session forward, it's a special longer, a special outlet.
It would be, I'm sorry, you are, David, you are right. It is a special outlet. You're going to have to take your outlet out, get it wired in, and it's going to be done by an electrician. So
So given the cost of the equipment and then the installation costs associated with special plug. Yeah, you got an estimate for what break even number of years would be for putting in a typical system?
I don't have an estimate, but I would say it's out past where Sean is right now. When you talk about 12 years, especially if you put a battery in, and if you spent $400 on a special outlet, all those costs, we're talking about right now, this is not a widely dispersed available product. So with adoption, the costs, we're going to slide down the cost curve, at which point in Germany, they're probably have a payback like 8 years or something like that, even shorter. But this is why early adopters are important. We're going to work out the kinks, and then it's going to become democratic after that. Okay. Yes.
Utah has this bill.
They are, as of now, the only state in the union that has it. And they're, yes.
People here talking to people.
We are in fact. We're working with a bunch of Sierra Club. So Samantha Dynowski and Steve are part of a group, Acadia Center, but the Connecticut League of Conservation Voters has a fellow on staff named Connor Yakitis who went to school out there. He's been talking to those people, and we are taking all the lessons. One of our goals is never to be original. You know, it used to be bad to copy off your neighbor's paper in those days. No, we'll copy off of Utah's paper as much as we can. And by the way, in Utah, Utah is not known as a bastion of liberalism. It was advanced by a Republican. So there's a lot of Mormons, obviously, in Utah. And one of the things that they're really keen on is you can call it prepper, being prepared in all dimensions of life. And this falls solidly in that category. And to this lady's point, this little bit of solar can make a big difference in the event of an outage, and it can save you money in the best of times.
Well, I started looking into this, and it was actually after the conference where what they're referred to. I started looking at other states in the Northeast, and I think Pennsylvania, New York, Vermont, and maybe New Hampshire, I forget, there are other states doing it, and because Connecticut is not usually in the forefront, I feel like if those states do it, maybe Connecticut will also, maybe we'll all do it together, or there'll be a get on the bandwagon idea. And to me, that's encouraging to think about what other states in the Northeast are doing this.
An excellent point. There's I don't know if people are familiar with the Volts podcast, David Roberts. If you're not, I really recommend it. But he had, I think her name is Cora Stryker from the from the group that's advocating Bright Saver. And very much what Christine said, they want to get 5 states on. And they want, for the reason that they want to drive down the cost. Right now, it's relatively unique. Just existing in one state, you're not getting large economies of scale or anything like that. But if we can get 5 states, I will say I'm uncharacteristically optimistic about this because we're asking for so very little. Really, we're just asking, it's like out of the Dickens, please, sir, maybe we have some more solar, you know, this.
You talk this tomorrow, for sure,
Yes,
but I think it might be. That's the issue.
it is.
Okay, so they don't really get it, right?
Yes, and this outlet, which I mistakenly called a plug, that they're now wrestling with that out there. So
But in the meantime, you know, like I have a backpacking solar panel that unfolds and I can charge my phone.
Yeah.
When I'm off grid out on the trail, and so, you know, these things have existed just in much smaller form for quite a while. Now, the question I could have, and then looking at Sean as I'm asking this for him, is, can these two paradigms peacefully coexist? Can the little brother get along with the big brother? In other words,
well, I don't know what the big brother is going to say, but the little brother is going to say, of course. You would plug it in, and all it would do would be to reduce the load of the house a little bit and allow you to either, like in my case, I have solar that I put up in 2013. My wife and I have an electric car. We have to charge our battery from time to time. We're buying power again because we're using so much. I'm going to get one of these because even though I have a big brother, he's kind of old and creaky at this point, but he's a big brother. I'm going to get one and to reduce my load. And big brother, do you have anything to say one way or the other on that?
So, there are customers, granted, there are homeowners for whom a large scale solar array is not going to be, feasible due to the general electric setup that they have, or shading at a macro level where, at maximum, we might be able to get 4 panels installed. But that cost would then be compounded by, issue permitting, interconnection, all these hard costs that would not be assessed on in the case of the little brother technology. So I think the two coexist peacefully. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think as I look around, I'm sure there are many houses in West Hartford and all around Connecticut where as we put in heat pumps, as we adopt electric vehicles, the system that was good in 2013 or 2020 isn't covering the load anymore. So the little brother could help the big brother.
and I would think also that if somebody starts out with the little brother, sees how great it is, and they could put also a big brother on their house, they could do that as well.
Yeah, and I'll have one unsolicited commercial for Earthlight. I can see even for traditional companies like Earthlight, they have electricians on staff. So if there's electrical upgrades that your house needs for whatever reason, these guys it's going to be a channel of business for them. And I can also see that as much as you can buy anything on Amazon, I would much rather buy it from, if these systems become available, I'd much rather buy it from a company that has a beautiful office out in Ellington like you guys do. So I think there's opportunities both on the electrician side as well as the product side for them to distribute.
So I got a question from someone on Zoom. It's actually 2 questions that I looked at it. So 1957 split level type finances, 350 a month Eversource bill can go up to 500 a month. Some air conditioning. Can they find a way? And the roof is old too. Can they find a way to use one or both of these solutions, or either of these solutions to really help them out?
Absolutely. So I didn't catch all of it. It's a 1957 that hasn't, if their roof is, then I would not put a 20 or 25-year asset on an old roof. But when you do re-roof, I would definitely talk to Big Brother. And in the meantime, I would see about getting a little brother in there. It's not going to hurt.
And also, Tesla had solar shingles for a while. I don't know if they still have them or if those are, still a play in the market. What, Sean, you want to answer that on
Yeah.
monitor? Or you can just say it out loud because it'll go.
through the mic, yeah.
Let's see if I can get some feedback on that. Yeah, so the Tesla solar energy product definitely still exists. It's starting to get deprecated, to some degree, even with Tesla's own internal installation teams. They've started to go back to doing traditional solar panel installations, but with, newer proprietary, racking that plays more nicely with their, with the panels that they're targeted. So the option exists. I would say that, the wattage that you would get from solar shingles is still fairly minimal.
Yeah.
It's a great looking roof. I would say that there are still efficiency gains that would be needed to make it a really good solar solution. So if you know that you have an older roof, and you know that you're going to be talking to Big Brother anyway, which is the terminology I'm going to take from this, from our talk today, is fantastic. A lot of Big Brothers are also now, roofers themselves, or they're bringing in their roofer cousin to completely bring in, familial, terminology.
Any other questions, as we wrap up?
Let me just add one, I guess, deprecation to what Sean said. I think the Tesla shingles were not the best solar adopters panels, as you said. There's a lot of stuff between the solar piece and the roof. The piece that made a roof block out a lot of the light, I guess. But it's also just very, very, very expensive. I think like a typical roof that might cost $20,000 would cost $100,000, something like that. So you're not worried, go for it.
So solar isn't dead, despite anybody having said that it was going to be, and we're glad that it isn't, and that it still has a good strong pulse, and there's a lot of options for people out there. So help spread the word that solar is still alive and kicking and viable. And when the plug-in solar comes along, that too will be an interesting option for people. If you have like a shed you've always wanted to run power out to, that might be a great place to have that little plug-in solar setup out there with a battery or something. Now power tools are all battery operated as well, so a good place to charge up your power tool batteries. So I want to thank Bernie. Oh, did you have one more thing?
No, I was going to say, I don't know if they're catching all your inspirational words, but
Yeah, so it's coming through here on Zoom.
Okay.
So I want to thank Bernie and Sean for coming tonight and for giving us a good education on why solar is still a viable and good investment for people with the right situation. And the other thing I'd like to say is, as Bernie was saying, we're going to need people to advocate for both plug-in solar for Connecticut to be one of those states, but also there's some bills on solar to make it easier to get a permit and, to do to make solar a little more friendly in this state, since the federal government wasn't as friendly as they used to be. So there's bills that we want to work together on, and with your help, get the legislature to do the right thing, so that Bernie doesn't pour cold water on it. And then, the other thing is there's some other big bills this session. The Climate Superfund bill is going to be heard next Friday in the Environment Committee. And, we're looking at a lot of storms, a lot of damage in our state that taxpayers and consumers are having to pick up. And, the polluters that caused that damage, the theory is they should be required to pay some reasonable share of what they caused. And so we'd like to see that bill get out of committee this year and potentially get heard on the House or Senate floor. So I want to thank everybody for coming here and for coming on Zoom tonight. And next month, we're actually collaborating with the West Hartford Garden Club to sponsor and